come to Chapter 10, Abandonment. So this is addressing the second noble truth and the three modes of its analysis. So the Pali reads, Idang dukkha samudayo aryasa chantime bhikkhave pubhe ananusute sudhammesu chakung udapadi jnanang udapadi panya udapadi vicca udapadi aloko udapadi tanko panidang dukkha samudayo aryasa chang pahatabanti me bhikkhave pubhe ananusute sudhammesu chakung udapadi jnanang udapadi panya udapadi vicca udapadi aloko udapadi tanko panidang dukkha samudayo aryasa chang pahi nanti me bhikkhave pubhe ananusutesu dhammesu chakung udapadi jnanang udapadi panya udapadi vicca udapadi aloko udapadi. And translated, that means there is this noble truth of the origin of suffering. This noble truth must be penetrated to by abandoning the origin of suffering. This noble truth has been penetrated to by the abandoning of the origin of suffering. Such was the vision, insight, wisdom, knowing, and light that arose in me about things not heard before. And so the image that Ajahn Sucitto has here within this framework, again you have the Celtic knotwork on either side and sort of merging down below with a couple of snarling dragons, and then the figures around the outside of this fivefold star represent the five senses. So you have the ear, the eye, the body, the tongue, and the nose. I think I'm seeing this correctly. And each one has got a bow and arrow, and they're sort of firing at the next one. And then the one at the middle represents the mind sense, so that the five senses, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, are then coordinated by the mind, so that the mind sense is just another one of the six senses, but it has a unique faculty insofar as it coordinates the other five of the so what you can call the external senses. Also, before going into Ajahn Sucitto's commentary, it's notable that with each of these, the imagery is around light and seeing. So chaku is the eye or vision, jnana is insight, panya wisdom, vicca awareness or knowing, aloko means light itself. So the vision, the imagery is of the element of light or the quality of light, and that of clear seeing. So that within the Dhammacakka Sutta, that's a sort of the key. The key medium is that of seeing, and that has relevance in relationship to the other suttas, particularly the Anattalakkhana Sutta, the Discourse on Not Self, and then the Adita Pariyaya Sutta, the fire sermon. So then to read Ajahn Sucitto's commentary. The Buddha then repeats the threefold analysis that he used for the first noble truth to explain the practice of the second noble truth. The theme here is of abandonment. The insight of the second noble truth is that there is an origin to dukkha, that the origin is to be penetrated by abandonment, and in its third and final aspect, that it has been penetrated by abandonment. Notice here that the penetration is successive, but the abandonment is not. One doesn't become more abandoned. Abandonment, letting go, is the timeless mode of the awakened ones. Abandonment is not something to be done in order that something else may follow, and it's not done for a certain length of time until one has let go enough and can resume holding or clinging. After his enlightenment, the Buddha's realization that he'd abandoned the origin of suffering was not an implication that, since he'd gotten rid of suffering, he could return to the normal way of being. Abandonment is not getting rid of. It's not an unpleasant medicine that one has to take until one is cured, but a joyful, fruitful way to live. Having abandoned old attachments, one lives with non-attachment. This ongoing abandonment is the ease of not holding on. It's the abiding place of the wise, the place of continual emptying and being beyond holding things in terms of their form or how they are felt and perceived. As long as we hold on, we want things not to age, not to change from the state we like or have grown accustomed to, and that is not possible. So this theme of letting go, of abandonment, the Pali word is pahanati, which literally means to let go, and so pahatabanti means it should be let go of, the origin of suffering, which is craving, sense desire, and the desire to become, the desire to get rid of, that those qualities of craving should be let go of. So that's the pahatabanti, should be let go of, and pahinanti, have been let go of, they have been abandoned, they have been dropped. So this quality of letting go or non-grasping, non-clinging is, in a way, this is like the central practice that the teaching points at. And if you remember talking about the cycle of dependent origination before, the link between feeling and craving. So after sense perception, there is feeling, Vedana, and then Vedana conditions craving, and then craving conditions clinging, and so forth. So that this the recognition of the second noble truth, that the cause of dukkha is craving, then the treatment with it, the way it's to be handled, is pahatabanti, it is to be let go of. So in a way, it's talking about how, if that bridge has been crossed between feeling and craving, this is, okay, get back across the bridge. The mind is just crossed over into craving and grasping, and so this is talking about letting go of grasping, and not continuing along that path, but rather as soon as that craving, that tanha, whether it's coarse or subtle, has been recognized, then the response to that, seeing that there is craving, that is letting go. There's a particular sutta that Ajahn Buddhadasa gave great importance to, and he used to say that you could summarize the entire Buddha's teaching in 4 words, and this 4-word summary comes from this particular sutta. It's number 37, I believe, in the Majjhima Nikaya. It's called the Lesser Discourse on the Destruction of Craving, the Chula Tanha Sankhaya Sutta. And in that discourse, then there's this phrase that is used, Sabhe Dhamma Nalang Abhinivesaya. Sabhe Dhamma, Sabhe means all, Dhamma means things, Nalang should not be, Abhinivesaya clung to or grasped at. So put those all together, it means nothing whatsoever should be clung to, nothing should be grasped, or in more colloquial English, don't cling to anything. And so in that sutta, the Buddha says, if you've learnt this, you've learnt all things. If you've practiced this, you've practiced all things. If you've penetrated this, you've penetrated all things. If you've realized this, then you've realized all things. So that's a fairly significant statement. It's like basically, this is all you need to know. This is all the information that's required. If you know this, then you know everything. So that's not an idle statement to be made. You know, if you know this, you know everything. You know, it's like a sort of an even smaller version of a handful of leaves. It's like not even a handful of leaves, it's just like one leaf. If you know this, Sabhe Dhamma Nalang Abhinivesaya, if you know this, you know everything. So that's a significant statement, and Ajahn Buddhadasa emphasise that and stress the importance of that. He said, this is not an idle comment, and not or off the cuff remark, but a very significant teaching, saying that if you know this, you know everything. If you've practiced this, you've practiced everything. If you've realized this, if you have accomplished this, you've accomplished everything. And so that is a phrase worth remembering, Sabhe Dhamma Nalang Abhinivesaya. And it's also interesting that in the northern Buddhist tradition there's a very significant sutra called the Vimalakirti Sutra, and it's a sutra where you have this layperson, Vimalakirti, who proves himself to be, dazzlingly wise and accomplished, and it's a fairly lengthy sutra. But if you and it's got a strangely close relationship to the Chula Tanha Sankhya Sutta. They both mention Indra, the king of the gods, and in the Pali version, he's called Kosya, as a kind of his like a personal name or a nickname that he's which means owl actually in Pali, but that's a nickname or a personal name that he was known by, and he's given the same name, Koshya, in the Vimalakirti Sutra. And when the Vimalakirti Sutra is kind of long and complex and has this sort of very subtle and profound wisdom teachings in it, it goes a long way to sort of making Sariputta in particular look like he's a complete dodo and and very kind of foolish and unwise. And Vimalakirti is far more accomplished and have a superior understanding, superior wisdom. But when Vimalakirti is sort of pressed to sort of give the ultimate teaching, the essence of the essence, okay, this is the true and ultimate, most profound teaching of all, then what he says is the Sanskrit version of Sabbe Dhamma Nalang Ivinivesaya. So that's the sort of most profound, ultimate, subtle teaching that's given in that sutra. The sort of ultimate wisdom is the same teaching. Don't cling to anything. And so that's an interesting relationship that those two particular suttas have to each other. I'm not quite sure what the origins are, how that came about, but you can look them up. There's a translation by Robert Thurman of the Vimalakirti Sutra, I think, that we have in the library, possibly others as well. So then Ajahn Sucitto carries on. In this painting, the frame of knotwork has opened out a little compared with the previous one. So that's the framework. He's talking about the sort of the structure on either side. So this whole series has got the same form with the Celtic knotwork and the sort of pillars either side, and then the form underneath. So that the previous one, you remember, was with the skull, with the radiant skull, and the knotwork kind of went all the way down to the ground, all the way to the bottom. This one, the knotwork goes about halfway down and then breaks up into this sort of blazing frame of the six senses down below. So he says, in this painting the frame of knotwork has opened out a little compared with the previous one. This is a reflection that the tangle of dukkha changes. It is really not the fundamental structure of our being. The mainstays of suffering are portrayed in the black, ignorance, and red, desire, serpentine figures coiling down from the top. So the red and the black represent avijja and tanha, or the significant colours on the roulette table. Yeah. The red and the black. Black represents ignorance and red desire. The serpentine figures coiling down from the top. These borders emanate from a threefold nuclear motif at the top, left, and right. In the case of the red, left, it is desire, tanha, in its triple aspect. Sensual desire, desire for becoming, and desire for annihilation. On the right, in the black corner, we have the three aspects of unknowing in action, the asavas, the outflows, asava, sensuality, becoming, and delusion. However, at the bottom left and right are the hands of the Buddha in the gesture of protection. So this is very useful symbolism. So we have the red one over here, tanha, the three kinds of tanha, kama tanha, sense desire, bhava tanha, and vibhava tanha, the desire to become and the desire to get rid of. And then in the black corner over here, we have the three aspects of avijja, represented by those three asavas, the three outflows, which are karmasava, sensuality, bhavasava, becoming, the outflow of becoming, and avijjasava, the outflow of delusion or ignorance. However, at the bottom left and right are the hands of the Buddha, these two say, colorless hands on either side of the hands of the Buddha, represent in the gesture of protection. At the top, the interwoven subject of the painting is seen as separate from the forces of delusion. There appears to be something pure blooming within that crossweave of powerful energies. So again, here we have this Celtic knot at the top, and there's a kind of brightness blooming in the middle behind some of the knots that's just sort of emerging at the crown of the picture. There appears to be something pure blooming within that crossweave of powerful energies. In parallel, at the bottom, a pure central radiance is surrounded by fiery forms. This motif depicts, in symbolic terms, the 6 sense bases, the 5 external senses of eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body, which surround the sense base of the mind. They have drawn bows with arrows because they are hunters and warriors. They shoot out to seize that which is pleasant and unpleasant, for different reasons, of course. The external senses are depicted as being on fire, bound by the serpents of unknowing and desire, whilst the mind is bright and radiant, with lotuses of purity emanating from it, though surrounded by fire. So what you have within this imagery is also borrowing from the fire sermon, where the Buddha says that all bhikkhus, all is burning, sabang aditang, everything is burning. And what is the all that is burning? The eye is burning, the ear is burning, the nose is burning, the tongue is burning, the body is burning, the mind is burning. And so they're representing the 6 senses as being on fire, burning with greed, hatred, and delusion. And so, in many respects, you have this sort of transformation, the energy of the mind going from the sort of imagery of heat being being converted to coolness, the kind of tapas. If you remember the earlier reading, talking about the tapas in the ascetic or yogis building up psychic heat. Heat is being sort of substituted for coolness. Nibbana means cool down. And fire, the imagery of the senses are ablaze. The energy of fire is being transformed into light. So you go from heat, fire and heat, to coolness and light as a basic imagery that you have within these teachings. The use of fire is a reference to the Buddha's 3rd sermon. Thank you very much. The fire sermon, Adita Pariyaya Sutta. Its theme is that all is burning. The eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind are burning with the fires of greed, hatred, delusion, with birth, death, sorrow, lamentation, grief, and despair. It was one of those fire and brimstone talks about where the real fires were and how to put them out. The metaphor of fire is a powerful one. It was used because the Buddha was talking to a group of fire-worshipping ascetics. Yet, sure enough, the origin of suffering, the feeling that we want to have something, become something, or get rid of something, has the power to get us heated up. It also has the fire-like quality of consuming our attention and producing a lot of smoke that blinds our sense of perspective. It's also significant that the word upadana, which means clinging or attachment, upadana is exactly the same as the word for fuel. Like I was talking about the upadana khandas, which can be translated as the 5 aggregates of clinging. They also that means upadana khanda means a bundle of fuel, like armfuls of firewood. Would be an upadana khanda. So upadana means fuel, that which can be burnt, like petrol would be upadana. It's fuel, and so that it's not just like this a different word spelt the same way, like minute and minute are 2 different words, but the spelling is the same. But there's actually the same word for fuel and for clinging, and so that it's the fuel for the burning senses is clinging, is that quality of attachment and bondage. Also, the image of the senses being as he says, they are hunters and warriors. That it's an image that the Buddha used he called the senses village raiding robbers. So that these are like sort of armed bandits that invade the mind with things that are seen, heard, smelled, tasted, and touched. They're like they kind of invade the mind and and raid the mind for its attention, as it were. The smokescreen effect is the force of ignorance which plays a major part in keeping the fires unrecognized. Our consumer society has standardized desires to the extent that we call them rights, and we expect them to be fulfilled by life. Yet it is quite clearly the case that the level of consumption of Earth's resources in terms of energy and raw materials is too high. And ironically, a good proportion of consumption is actually created by the need to get a break from the stresses of consumer society that demands so much. It is not an abandonment, quote-unquote, society, except maybe the abandonment of sense restraint. So there's a lot of desire hidden in the ways we perceive and create expectations as a society. When this demand is accepted as the common norm, it never gets checked. Please be the way I want you to be. I want privacy, but connection to all the modern conveniences. I want my team, my family, my country to always be the winner and not let me down. I'd like my monastery to be popular and all the monks and nuns to be wise, happy and serene. And the teacher to be inspiring, but not so much that I feel intimidated. To be strict, but not severe. Funny, but only at the right times. And to be there when I want him or her, and not to be there when I don't. And I myself would like to be just right, always calm and assured and profound and light and ... The real conflagration is in the mind. The desires of the other senses are merely functional. It's in the mind that you can feel the heat rise, often just over issues and opinions. But the mind does not have to be on fire like the external senses. The senses are just that way because they're bound to the slow consuming flame of bodily life, functioning in order to support bodily needs and instincts. Although the mind can produce the craziest, most outrageous desires, it always has the power to reflect on that heat. We may choose to ignore it, but this kind of knowing is clear, undiluted, and awakened. Something knows when we slow down or feel burnt out that this is the origin of suffering. The one who ignores awareness blots that knowing out as soon as possible. So this is talking about the seeing of desire, seeing that there is that dukkha has been recognized, and then seeing that that's come from somewhere like the model of the Four Noble Truths, or what we call the Four Noble Honesties, or the Four Noble Practices, that it's cast in the form of a medical diagnosis. So dukkha is the symptom. That is the symptom of the spiritual malaise, the spiritual illness. And so a doctor will see the symptoms, a particular ache or a rash, something funny with the skin, or a particular feeling that a person has, that they're itchy, or they're cold, or they have a strange lump somewhere. That they're okay. What's the cause of that symptom? That's what doctors are trained to look for. So tanha, these are seen as the cause of the illness, and so then how then recognizing that the cause, then the way to handle that cause is through letting go, is through that pahata banti. It should be let go of. Pahinanti, it has been let go of. So that's how in a way the cause is related to, and then the Eightfold Path, which we'll come to with the fourth truth, in a way is the method whereby that letting go is exercised, or the how that is carried out in the different areas of our life. So that's how the letting go is exercised, is through samadhi, sammasankappa, right view, right intention, and so on and so forth. As he says, the mind does not have to be on fire like the external senses, so that in order to let go, like Ajahn Chah would say, letting go is not throwing things away or not destroying things. It means we can hold, but without clinging. We pick something up when we need it. We put it down when we don't need it. So to let go of the senses doesn't mean to sort of blot out our eyes or plug up our ears and numb our tongue and so forth. It's not living in a sensory deprivation tank. But rather, peace doesn't come through sensory deprivation, but rather through understanding the senses and learning how to relate to the feelings, the Vedana that come from the senses, feelings of like, feelings of dislike, and neutral feelings, and to, in a sense, be ready to let go of those compulsions that arise from that. Going back to the term asava, it's also it's a different image from that of fire. The word asava means an outflow. It also has connotations of decay or rot, something that's kind of like a sore that is running or is pussy, so that something that is flowing out and also that is a bit rotten. So that these outflows are of another way of describing the mind's attachments. As he says, the three aspects of ignorance are these asava. And so one of the ways of describing enlightenment is kinasava, like the stopping of the outflows, that the mind is not allowed to flow out. So there's still seeing and hearing and smelling and tasting, touching, but the mind doesn't flow out into those objects and identify with them. Oh, that's awful, and that's frightening, or that's wonderful. Like, I've got to have it, or I can't stand it. That going out and occupying, the sense of identification and attachment, the mind flowing out, and so the kinasava, the mind which is not flowing out, which has stopped the outflows, is then still the Buddha and enlightened beings still see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and think, but the mind is not flowing out and identifying and say getting entangled in the array of sense perceptions that we experience. So Ajahn Sucitto carries on. For instance, an ex-military man was telling me about the common use of alcohol to relieve some of the extreme tension caused by the fear and aggressive conditioning of army life. You drink to get rid of the stress. Go to bed in a befuddled state and then wake up the next morning feeling ghastly and confused. The anxiety over what happened last night and the need to try to pull yourself together for the morning is so stressful that you reach for the bottle of vodka or scotch under the bed. Soon your body develops the shakes and you need a drink to settle your nerves. The group of 5 to whom the Buddha addressed this sermon did not have a drinking problem. Hopefully, the majority of spiritual seekers will also not have to work through that one. But note the kind of suffering that desire can put you through, the desire to become something or the desire to get rid of. Here is an extract from the Buddha's description of his own unenlightened asceticism. I thought, this is the Buddha speaking, suppose with my teeth clenched and my tongue pressed against the roof of my mouth, I beat down, constrain and crush my mind with my mind. Then as a strong man might seize a weaker by the head or the shoulders and beat him down, constrain him and crush him, so with my teeth clenched and my tongue pressed against the roof of my mouth, I beat down, constrained and crushed my mind with my mind. Sweat ran from my armpits while I did so. Though tireless energy was aroused in me and unremitting mindfulness established, yet my body was overwrought and not calm, because I was exhausted by the painful effort. Not my problem, comments the average contemporary meditator. I think probably safe to assume. Not my problem, comments the average contemporary meditator. Yet, within the context of their own values, people do experience the same kind of stress with the desire to stop their incessant thinking. and the alternative course of desire is wide open. The retreat junkies, quote unquote, obsessively tinkering with situations, wanting the right setting, the right diet, bodywork, enough relaxation, suitable doses of calming music, eclectic spiritual teachings from which to select the one that is exactly suited to their personal tastes, and a format that does not require them to give up what they don't want to. Contemporary spiritual training can be clever in a technical, manipulative way. It produces a great deal of one kind of knowledge of how subtle body energies work and how they can be directed. Knowledge of the structure and conditioning of the psyche and how to bring out the most fortunate moods. But it all leads to further perpetration of me and mine and my wants. This technical knowledge is precarious, dependent upon sustaining circumstances. It's not free. The symptoms of suffering are being allayed, but its origin is not being abandoned. Technical know-how is not the knowing that abandons the origin of dukkha. So also it should be noted that when Ajahn Sucitto was putting this book together, he had it in mind for an American audience. It was the original idea was that the branch monastery in California was going to open in May of 1992, and this book was going to be handed out to everybody when the monastery opened. Well, the monastery didn't open in 1992, and the book wasn't printed then either. So I'm sure when it actually did get 1995 the book appeared, and 1996 was when Abhayagiri Monastery opened. But by that time we were no longer sort of particularly thinking of this as the tours as being related together, and this got printed in Thailand rather than the USA. So Ajahn Sucitto was drafting this, and he gave a few different presentations, but he put it together for specifically for an American audience, and the majority of the people in the California group were people who have come out of the meditation retreat, Vipassana circuit, as it were, and so that becomes both a sort of assuming the indulgent freewheeling, crazy wisdom kind of approach of many American Buddhists was, say, a large part of the audience. Also people who've done a lot of Vipassana retreats, either with Goenkaji or with IMS, Spirit Rock, and that whole field of people. So it's got that kind of a tone that sort of filters its way through. The second noble truth hinges upon the first. Suffering has not been understood nor looked into, but when we do look into it, the root becomes evident. The problem lies in self-view. This self-view is conjured up out of a consciousness moored to the needs of the body and operating from a desire mode. Our ways of relating to the world get created from the early experiences of helpless, dependent bodily life, when a consciousness is taught to be constantly on the lookout for bodily needs and discomfort, and the impression arises that there is a mental or immaterial me that needs things. But what the mind really needs is wisdom, for wisdom is the most sustaining food. And the good news is that we already have it. We just have to cultivate wisdom in simple ways, like knowing what our body really needs and how much we can expect of it. So abandonment is not rejection. It's an unwillingness to hold on to assumptions and habits when they are no longer relevant or helpful, and when they cause dukkha. With the presence of seeing or knowing, there is that which sustains the mind by itself. In that sphere, there is no need. Through encouraging investigation and thereby activating wisdom, these noble truths lead us to something incomparably more worthwhile than this mass of dukkha. That is why these truths are fine, noble, pure, and rare. The more that our perceptions of how things should be, or how we'd like to be, are abandoned, the more the truth can enter the mind. The perceptions based on self-view are that I like to feel that I'm going in the right way, that I have my bearings, that there are people I can rely upon, and fixed systems that won't let me down, and that my body is healthy and not being corroded by some chemical additives in the food. Above all, I want my mind to be clear, reasonable, and in control. But that's not the way it's going to be, is it? This system runs down. Sooner or later, one of my organs will mutiny and cause me pain. Probably my memory is going to fade. There's a good chance that if I'm attached to mental clarity and agility, I'm going to get upset and frightened when it goes. And maybe I'll get put in some home with other senile rejects. I don't think we'd let that happen to Ajahn Sucitto, would we? Maybe I'll get put in some home with other senile rejects. It's better to abandon physical and mental states as something to identify with. Let go of those perceptions that the self-image depends upon. Then attention can focus upon the present and be free from bias. Things are known in themselves, and actions are done because they are right, and not to bring about my imaginary future. Then he quotes from the Bahia Sutta in the Udana, the inspired utterances. This is the Buddha speaking to Bahia. Thus, Bahia, you should train yourself. In what is seen, there is only the seen. In what is heard, there is only the heard. In what is sensed, there is only what is sensed. In what is thought, there is only what is thought. Then for you, there will be no there. When there is no there will be no here. And because both extremes are not, this indeed is the end of suffering. Another translation of that is that you will not be able to find you will not then, when you see there is no here, when you see there is no there, thus by here you will not be able to find yourself either in the world of this, nor in the world of that, nor anywhere between the two. This by here is the end of dukkha. It's an insight into non-dualism, the way of realization. So that it's speaking very clearly about that way of relating to the senses, and also letting go of the sense of self. So in a way, what this letting go, the pahanati, the quality of letting go, is at the very root is letting go of those habits of self-creation. I want to get, I want to have, I want to switch off, I want to not feel, I want to be this, I want to have that. All those qualities of craving are built around the sense of I and me and mine. And when that craving, that tanha, is let go of, and it's like the images of clinging and then letting go. When that clinging stops and the letting go happens, then there is still the sense world, but there's seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, but there's no sense of I involved. And so this teaching to Bahia, I was talking yesterday with the novices, Anagarikas, about there's 4 different characters who got knocked down and killed by a runaway cow in Buddhist mythology. Bahia was one of them, and another was Tambadatika, who was the state executioner. Another was Pukusati, who was supposed to be a prince who had given up his throne and had met the Buddha and spent a night with him without realizing who he was sharing a room with. Until sort of halfway through the night, when they're having a conversation, he realized, and he was sort of chatting with his sort of fellow yogi and wanderer, and Pukusati said to the Buddha, well, I'm a disciple of the Buddha, but I've never met him. I'm on my way to Savatthi to go and find him. And the Buddha said, oh, really? That's interesting. But didn't reveal who he was. And then as the conversation proceeded, then Pukusati asked this fellow yogi who was sharing a room with, okay, well, what kind of practice do you do, or how do you see things? And then as the Buddha started to speak, he gave this extremely thorough analysis of the elements. It's called the exposition of the elements on the dhatu, like earth, water, fire and wind, and also space, the element of space and the element of consciousness. And when he's about sort of halfway through this Dhamma talk, then Pukusati has this kind of slightly sickening realization, I think I know who I'm sharing this room with. There's only one person that could talk like this. And he realizes, are you actually the Samana Gautama? Are you the master? Are you the Bhagavan, the Buddha? He said, yes, that's right. So then he hits the floor and bows and says, please forgive me for speaking to you in such a familiar way, but I was traveling to go and find you. So, what good fortune. So anyway, then the Buddha teaches him, and he wants to become the Buddha's disciple, and then he goes out to try and find a robe and a bowl and gets knocked down by this cow. So it's a very busy cow that knocked down these four different people, and one was the state executioner, Tambadatika, which means copper teeth. One was Supa Buddha, not Super S-U-P-E-R, but Supa S-U-P-A, Supa Buddha, who was a leper and very poor, a kind of beggar in the streets. And one was Pukusati, who was this freelance wanderer, and the other was Bahia, who was a well-regarded yogi, and all four of them got knocked down and killed by this particular very active cow. Anyway, so Bahia he'd been a yogi for many years, and thought of himself as being someone who had reached enlightenment. And then, as the story goes, that this Devata appeared, who had been a member of Bahia's family in their previous life. Thought, I better go and tell Bahia what the story really is. So this Devata appeared to Bahia one night and said, well, Bahia, you have the opinion that you are an arahant, that you're fully enlightened, but actually that's not the case. You're not an arahant, and you're not on the path to becoming an arahant. And so Bahia, to his credit, obviously, I suspect there was a little bit of harumph there. Like, what do you mean? Didn't take that tack, but instead said, well, are there any enlightened beings? Okay, if you're so knowledgeable, tell me, are there any enlightened beings in the world? And this Devata said, yes, indeed. There's this Samana Gautama, the monk Gautama, who lives at the moment in Savatthi. And then Bahia, hearing about the Buddha and his teaching, sort of got up then and there and started walking. And it was a long journey. Bahia lived in some place on the coast apparently of northwestern India, and walked all the way to Savatthi over several months. It is determined to meet this enlightened being, Gautama Buddha. And so then when they met, the Buddha was on his arms round, walking through the streets of Savatthi, and Bahia, who was a yogi who wore clothing made out of woven bark. It was like a bark-clad ascetic tree bark, made his clothing from tree bark. Then he knelt down in the street in front of the Buddha and said, "Venerable Sir, you are the Samana Gautama. Please teach me the Dhamma. Teach me what you know, because I've come very far and I want to understand, to know your teaching." And the Buddha said, "Bahia, this is we're on our arms round. This is not the time to be teaching, but please wait till the arms round is over and come to the Jetavana, and I'll give you instruction there." And then Bahia says, "Venerable Sir, life is uncertain. Neither you nor I know when we will die, and so please teach me now." And so, being a good Buddhist story, they go back and forth 3 times. Buddhists always do everything 3 times over. The first, just to get in the mood. Second time, because you're paying attention by then, and the third time, just in case you need an extra one to make sure. So my pet theory of why we do everything 3 times over. So the Bahia puts the same question 3 times, and the Buddha responds. Say, well, Bahia, when a Tathagata is pressed up to the 3rd time, then he has to answer. So if you keep pushing, then the Buddha would indeed respond. So after asking for the 3rd time, then the Buddha says this gives him this teaching, and says, "In the seen there is only the seen, in the heard there is only the heard, in the sensed there is only the sensed, in the cognized there is only the cognized. This is how you should train yourself. And when for you, Bahia, there is in the seen only the seen, in the heard only the heard, and so on, then you will see that there is indeed no thing there." So you'll recognize that there's no solid thing out there, but what is happening is there is seeing. So I can say, oh, Martin is over there. But then we're recognizing, well, actually, no, there is no thing there. It's here in this mind is the experience of seeing. That's my mind's representation of the seen. There is no thing there. This is my mind's representation of it. That's what's being experienced. And then the Buddha says, when you see there is no thing there, you will also see that there is no thing here, that there is no me who's the seer, but there is simply seeing. So letting go of the object, and then letting go of the subject. And then he says, he said, this is how you should train yourself. And then by here, when you see there is indeed no thing there and no thing here, you will not be able to find yourself either in that or in this or in any place between the two. And this by here is the end of suffering. So that there is the sense world that the mind is awake to, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, but freed from the veneer or the distortion of I and me and mine, free from the habit of creating self and other, me and the world, a subject and an object, as you can say, as subjectless, objectless awareness. And that, as he says, is the end of dukkha. So that's a very, very useful teaching to reflect on. It's in the Udana, it's, chapter 8 of the Inspired Utterances. But it's very well worth picking up, looking at, and considering, and also teaching us how to relate to the sense world in a very direct, but also non-personal way. It's also kind of interesting. Many years ago, when Ajahn Viradhammo was giving a talk about this at Chithurst sometime in the early 80s, one of the Anagarikas thought, when he said, in the scene there is only the scene, he heard it as seen as in S-C-E-N-E, like in the scene, it's kind of where you're at, man, in the scene it's just the scene, right? And then the herd was the H-E-R-D, like the kind of the vulgar herd, the kind of group of sort of mass of ignorant humanity. In the herd, there's just the herd. And so his mind was kind of creating this whole different Dhamma talk around the theme, and it took him quite a while to, that's not what he's talking about. But he was sort of writing a whole different Dhamma theme from mishearing those two particular words. Anyway, I think that brings us to the end of that chapter, the insight into non-dualism, freedom from subject and object. And so if there's any questions or things people would like to have some clarification or discussion on, please don't be shy.
I have a question. Yesterday I was looking at this chapter and I couldn't figure out, my Pali knowledge is not very good. I couldn't figure out which Pali word is penetrating to. So it says it should be penetrated to by abandonment.
That's Ajahn Sucitto's edition.
Because I have read it a few times, but I can't make out the word.
No, that's Ajahn Sucitto's as his own way of expressing it. But there isn't anything in the Pali that says penetrating to. It's the ananusutesu dhammesu is the pube ananusutesu dhammesu that is probably that that he's sort of interpreting it in that way, that this thing should be reflected upon in this way.
Or is it a combined verb? Sometimes you have that, and it's just very easy to find. To disentangle.
Well, that phrase, you got idang dukkha samudayo arya sachanti me bhikkhave pupe ananusutesu tammesu chakum udapadi. So then that pupe ananusutesu tammesu is a it's I can't think of a sort of the precise way of translating it, but it's it means something like it is to be handled in this way. So that's what and then he repeats that, but it's not actually repeated each line. The ananusutesu tammesu. It is repeated each line, but it's not something that changes. So you've got parinye yanti me bhikkhave pube ananusutesu tammesu. So that's what he's translating as should be penetrated to. But it means like this is the way to work with it, or this is the way to handle it, or this is the way that it's picked up. I mean, I'd be interesting to look up that ananusutesu. That would be the word to go after if you want to have a little homework or some more.
Maybe we can have a look together.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that's the actual etymology of that. But that's what he's translating as penetrated to.
Because I remember there's a similar formulation in Ajahn Amaro's commentary on the Swami book, this little booklet. And when I looked at Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, it's different, right? So it's obviously there's something which can be translated in different ways.
Yeah, I think the word anusati, like Dhammanusati or Marananusati, it's like that the contemplation of, like we say Buddhanusati, the contemplation of the Buddha, the qualities of the Buddha, or Anapana, or like Kaya. The Chaganusati, the contemplation of generosity, or the Dhammanusati, the contemplation of Dhamma, so that it needs to be contemplated or to be reflected upon. That all of those would be, and I think it comes from that term anusati. And then because you got ananusutesu. And the extra an at the beginning, I would think as an emphasizer. It's like it kind of just strengthens it. Like you've got to really contemplate it. But I would suggest that it. Anyway, I think it's coming from anusati. But please do some research and come back. Help us with that. Martin, yeah.
I've heard a very fine metaphor, and hearing you speaking tonight, I wonder where it comes from. It's for the clinging. It's grasping the lotus. Is that something that appears in the...
Grasping the lotus? No. I have no idea where that would come from.
It's a delicate flower, and if you grasp it, you'll crush it.
They talk about grasping the wrong handling of kusa grass, which is very interesting, because what we use for the this is kusa grass. This and kusa, the kusa of kusa grass is apparently the root of the word kusa, meaning wholesome, and it's the kind of grass the Buddha was sitting on when he was enlightened. But also kusa grass has got sharp edges. So if you certain kinds of grass, if you take hold of it and you pull it, you cut your hand. And the Buddha says when like kusa grass, when wrongly grasped, will cut the hand. So too the holy life, when mishandled, will rebound on the person. That they will the holy life, when wrongly lived, will drag you to hell. That's how it says. But it's like you can get a paper cut. You can cut from a piece of paper. If you pick up paper in the wrong way, you can. If you take hold of kusa grass, then it'll cut your hand. But the image of the lotus, wrongly grasping a lotus. You have the image of the water forming into a bead and rolling off the leaf of a lotus without making it wet. That's a common image. Or lotuses growing either under the surface of the water, on the surface of the water, or above the surface of the water. You have that. But grasping lotuses, I don't know where that would come from. At least anybody else heard of grasping lotuses? Mahayana. Well, probably some Mahayana riff. But yeah, also people make up their own things or have their own kind of take on things, and then you see that the Buddha said, but you can't actually find it in the canon. One of the interesting things about grasping and letting go is that when Luang Por Chah was asked to define Nibbana, because also in Thailand, and I think generally speaking in the southern Buddhist world, when they talk about Nibbana, it's kind of formed as a sort of super heaven in people's imagination. It's like a really super duper, an extra special heaven that you can't come back from. It's like a sort of the heaven of no return, and which is not what you have in the canon at all. But it's something very remote, and far away, and outside the range of most people. And so Ajahn Chah spent a lot of time and effort trying to sort of bring the Dhamma teachings home and to help people to see them as realistic and practical. And so when he was asked to define Nibbana, then one of the ways he defined it was to just call it the reality of non-grasping. That's the nature of Nibbana. When the mind is free of grasping, what is experienced is Nibbana. And you also have that, there's a phrase, it's not actually the Buddha speaking, I think it's Sariputta speaking, where he says, Bhavani Rodho Nibbanang, the cessation of becoming is Nibbana. And it's a conversation between Venerable Ananda and Venerable Sariputta, and Ananda is asking him about a particular quality of meditation, profound insight, profound abandonment. The mind that's let go of identification with the senses, and Venerable Ananda asks Venerable Sariputta, so when your mind is fully aware of this sort of deep enchantment or non-entanglement with the senses, or kind of abandonment of the senses, he said, are you aware of anything? And he said, yes. And he said, well, what are you aware of? And he said, I'm aware of Nibbana is the cessation of becoming. Nibbana is the cessation of becoming. That's what's clear when the six senses are being fully abandoned, let go of, and there's no identification. That what's present is that realization. Nibbana is the cessation of becoming. So that, in that sense, bhava is you can look at it as being a synonym for clinging or attachment and grasping. It would be sort of contained within that. Yes.
I have a question regarding a practical way. How can we go, instead of clinging further, saying, I want 2 pairs of shoes and that should be fine, but then you want 3 pairs and then you want 4 pairs. How can you go the other way, saying, how can we stop basically this mind wanting more?
Have your friend carry the credit card. Have your friend carry the credit card when you go shopping. I'm not entirely joking, because in practical terms, if we create fences that we have to climb over in order to follow our desires, that nowadays it's like see, want, get within seconds, like with iPhones and iPads and such like, that the gap between perceiving and acquiring gets shorter and shorter, and there's some delivery time for the object. But oftentimes, if what you want is something through the computer, then it's right there. You might have to wait for a download or something to get a particular book or whatever it is you're desiring. But see, want, get. The gap is narrowed, so that the more we can create hurdles that we have to climb over in order to gratify our desires, then that helps the mind to think, well, hang on a minute, do I really want to go that far? So as I say, if your friend is carrying a credit card, you think, well, those shoes are nice, and you've got to ask your friend, can I have the card? I want to get those shoes. And so then there's a fence you have to climb over, and I say, really, you like those? Yeesh. Yeah, red is not your colour. Oh, you think so? Okay. Let's see if they got them in green. And so there's a kind of a moment to pause and to consider, and then also just recognizing the difference between liking and wanting is really crucial. And on a strictly practical level, just to make more barriers that you have to climb over before you follow your desires. Like setting out a principle that you shop in two phases. Like you go out without any money first of all, and then you decide what you want, and then you go back and you make a second trip when you've got the money or the card with you, and you say, and you just make a firm resolution. That's the way you're going to do it. And that you say, I never buy things the first time that I see them, but I'll make a note or write down where they are, and then I'll go back and sometimes they're still there, and sometimes they're gone, and they're used to living with that, and sometimes the price has been reduced, So setting those kind of things in place, like practical, buffers, ways to buffer the desiring system. But more important, in terms of the meditation and mind training, is learning to recognize the difference between liking and wanting. That you can like something and say, yeah, that's beautiful, that's desirable, yeah, it's very, very lovely, but I don't need to have it, and I will not be diminished if I don't get it. Like this, I had an insight, a very, very significant insight on this. The very first day I walked into the monastery in Thailand. I'd never meditated before, really, and didn't know anything about Buddhism, never even read a Buddhist book before I went there. And so I arrived and asked if I could stay for a few days, and met the abbot, and then he asked one of the anagarikas to look after me and get me sorted. And I'd been asking the anagarika about, well, what's this meditation stuff that you're doing, and how do you do that, how do you meditate? And he was talking about the Four Noble Truths and about desire. And it was really interesting to me, because I've been wrestling with that issue for years as a teenager, about how you can be free. And I equated freedom with being able to gratify all your desires. To be able to do anything that you want, have everything that you want, then you're free to do whatever you like, and all your desires are gratified. That's what real freedom is, I thought. And so when he said how desire is the cause of suffering, I thought, well, that's a weird idea. What's he talking about? But then he made this point that, well, desire, and he was Australian, so I still hear it in my mind. So desire is a liar. Not a lawyer, a liar. Desire is a liar. It lies to us. And that when you feel you want something, the mind is lying to you. You don't really have to have that. But it says when you want something, that you're not going to be happy until you get it. And I thought, well, that's rubbish. You want something and you get it, and then you're happy, or you don't get it and you feel frustrated. That's how desire works. And he said, no, it's not like that at all. And so I kind of thought he was talking nonsense. But he said, no, when the desire is lying to you. So anyway, I was also being acquainted with the principle that they don't have supper or don't eat in the afternoon in the monastery, which I hadn't realized. So there we are, the evening sitting, my first meditation, And so I thought I'd put this thing to the test somehow. So I had this feeling, I'd really like some pineapple. I'd just been living in Phuket, they have like local pineapples. And so I thought, I really fancy a piece of pineapple. And I was extremely poor, so that was my basic diet, was these one baht sticks of pineapple. And so, I really fancy a piece of pineapple. And I thought, you're in the meditation, and also they don't have any food here in the evening, so you're not going to get it. So I thought, okay, well, this is one of those desires. So he said, just watch the desire and let go of it. And I said, well, I'm watching the desire, and I still haven't, haven't got the pineapple. So, I'm not happy. How is this helping? And then a few minutes went by, and then my mind got distracted, and I suddenly realized, the desire for the pineapple has gone. And then I realized, I didn't get the pineapple, and now nothing is missing. I didn't get the pineapple, but nothing is missing. So he's right, it was lying to me. Because at that moment when the desire was there, it's like, I want some pineapple. I've got to have that. Otherwise I won't be happy. And then that this sudden realization, I didn't get the pineapple, but nothing is missing. And it was like this large bell going dong, like this big light bulb of, that's significant. And that to be able to recognize that desire is lying to us. And it says you got to have, and you won't be happy unless you have, just to be able to remember that's not true. So one of Ajahn Chah's very simple practices is when you feel desire for something, just to say, liar. Very, very basic, simple, direct practice. Liar. So you try that. It'll save you a lot of money as well.